Space, the final frontier. Space Station Ashland sits on the edge of Federation space with its companion ship, the USS Dalamis Christian. The space around them is full of mystery and strange wonders, where secrets are kept and danger lurks around every corner. The crew of the Dalamis Christian must navigate treacherous waters as they work to protect the Federation. But as they peer into the unknown, they will discover that the line between friend and foe is not always clear. They will be tested like never before and will face challenges that will push them to their limits. Join us on this adventure as we explore the farthest reaches of space and uncover the hidden truths that lie within the shadows. Tabletop Journeys presents Star Trek Preservations.
Welcome, travelers. This is Star Trek Preservations Quick Treks. I'm Lee Wanika, your storyteller / GM for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game, and we're here for yet another Quick Treks, a short one-on-one session with one of our cast members in their character, and some of the things that happen in-game that are important to what's going on overall, but not part of the primary episode as a whole. We call those Quick Treks because we think they're informative, they're fun, and quite honestly, in a month when we have a break from recording with the entire cast, it's good to roll dice every now and then. With me today, I have Adam, and I will let him introduce himself more fully and with his character. Take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm Adam Scaramella, and I portray Oshen, the Dalamis Christian's Andorian First Officer.
Excellent. And we are here filling in an interesting gap. There's a lot of things happening in the penultimate episode and ultimate episode of Season 2. So many things, in fact, that it was hard to stuff everything into a 10-episode season. Quick Treks was really the way we were going to do this. I wanted to make sure we got the opportunity for some personal development for the character, something Adam and I had talked about nigh into a year ago. And while we had several episodes that really featured some of the things impacting Oshen's life, we didn't get to some of that personal development stuff that we had talked about also. So that's what we're here to do today. In the middle of one of our scenes, Lieutenant Commander Oshen was waiting in an interrogation room for the interrogation to begin. It is in these quiet moments, the calm before the storm, if you will, that we find Lieutenant Commander Oshen.
Personal log, stardate 58995.93. The details of my location are, at this point, classified. I'm currently awaiting the next phase of this situation. Until I know more, I believe it's in my best interest to focus my thoughts on less contentious topics. I think I'll begin with recent interactions with the crew.
As our scene fades from Oshen sitting in Spartan interrogation room, table, chair, walls, and a door which he knows to be sealed, we hear the personal log fade as we begin our scene. A few days earlier, on the Dalamis Christian, Oshen is in his quarters working on the habitat for his pet and trying to figure out how to make that as comfortable and as interesting and as possible. Oshen, would you care to describe your work and what this entails?
So the pet that we're talking about is a small hybor, which is an Andorian rabbit with, instead of the front paws, it has more hands, and the ears are much shorter and similar to an Andorian's antennas. The creature's name is Zamrith, and he is currently perched on my shoulder, holding my head as I'm walking him around trying to find a good place to allow him to create his burrow. Much like a rabbit, they do tend to like those enclosed areas, but at the same time, he also tends to be a little bit mischievous, and I do not care to have to move furniture every time I want to know where he's hidden something. So,
along those lines, for game purposes, we do start and begin this fine adventure with 2 threat per player. So 2 threat is on the table. No momentum at present. What's your approach to finding the proper or the best possible placement for Zamrith?
Thinking about the way that my father's office had a series of storage containers and cabinets that he had moved away from the wall. When he kept the Hybors, they would have a place to go where he knew where they were, and he could get in there fairly easily by moving one of the containers. Given that we're on a starship, I don't really have cabinets or what have you, so I have been considering taking one of the panels off of a cabinet, like a table that it's got the surface, it's got the 2 cabinets on the bottom, thinking about pulling one of them off to give him a little space that he can call his own.
It's a pretty easy engineering task to do that, but I would think the real challenge here would be whether or not Zamrith finds it interesting.
I will be walking around my cabin with him, doing what every pet owner does, and we all know it doesn't work. We're talking to them and telling them, what about that spot? No, that'd be like waiting for some sort of reaction, knowing that I'm not going to get one from him.
Zamrith, as you said, is mischievous and does like interaction with you quite a lot. Now, whether or not Zamrith is being honest about what he seems to be indicating, that remains a challenge. So I do think, interestingly enough, this is going to be an insight engineering task. Insight in that you need to figure out, okay, Is this a real signal or is he just messing with me? Engineering in that, am I going to be able to make this actually work? Because Zamrith is so mischievous, we're going to give this what would normally be a 1 difficulty, because the engineering of it is easy. You're just creating a space that's semi-enclosed. But the mischievousness is easily a 2-point trait. So we've got a difficulty of 3 on this insight engineering task.
Okay, you're gonna make me. You know what? I'll bite. I'll buy a die with threat.
Alrighty.
And I have a focus that I think would come into play. I have the focus jury rigging.
I like it. That would definitely come into play.
All right, so get my 18 pounds of dice. Can I reroll one of those? No, I can't. So that would be 2 successes.
Excellent. Now, you are in your quarters. There are some things you're going to have to do, so I'm actually happy to provide the assistance of the DC itself in this particular case.
Okay.
And it would be a structure engineering task for the DC.
Okay, and that's a single die, and that would be, so you said structure engineering?
Correct.
So that would be a total of 10. That is another success.
Excellent. So you have successfully come up with a spot, and somewhere not terribly far from your actual bed is one of those nightstands, and you're able to pop the corner on it, but it also has a spot in the back. So there's a space behind it where you can put some blankets back there and what have you. It's also comfortable temperature-wise for the Hybor, but secure. Like, it's dark back there. Even when the lights are up, there's not a lot of light that goes back there, so it satisfies all those security issues that pets of that nature would have. So you've created the proper environment for Zamrith. While you're putting that all together, there's a beep at your door.
Enter.
Entering is Ensign Lusan. He's finishing up his shift. It is towards the end of the evening or what have you, and he stops in and he says, "Sir, I have a question, and I know I probably could have or should have gone to my direct commander, but they may have already made their decision, and I don't know if I agree with it.
Okay. And I will stand up from what I was doing, turn to look at him, and is he standing in an open doorway, or has he come in?
He has entered the room. The door has closed behind him. Yeah.
What is this regarding? I don't invite him. What I'm balancing is whether or not Oshen would have said, have a seat. And I don't believe that he would initially.
I guess I'm trying to figure out the best way to approach the situation. Let me start at the beginning, sir. We are on our way back to Aslan Station. Part of my job is to just review sensor logs. Course has already been plotted. That was done before I sat in the chair for my shift. But as reviewing things that are coming up and things to be aware of, the computer highlights and pinpoints things to check as we get closer in case situations change. I'm worried about one of the environmental situations that kind of pinged in the system. The records show that the lieutenant definitely cleared this, didn't want to deal with it too much, but I think we should really go around it. But science is indicating we need to collect some sensor readings as we pass it. I just think that it has the potential for creating some issues. We've had a lot of issues with subspace, and this is a subspace phenomenon. A lot of things we've been dealing with lately just don't seem to mesh well with that. And I'm concerned that if we get too close, even though that's our projected course, that it can be a problem. If we take an extra day or two to get around it, we can avoid that altogether and then maybe do a proper survey once we've resupplied and come back. I just don't know if on the way back with everything we've got and all the extra people we have on board, it makes good sense to stop and study or even slow down and study.
Okay. Real quick, his immediate supervisor would be Lieutenant Averick, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so I will ask then, and you did bring this to Lieutenant Averick.
Lieutenant Averick had already been asked the question, had conferred with folks in the science department, and Lieutenant Averick already signed off on going that way, even slowing the ship down to do more detailed survey as we pass, allowing science to do a more detailed survey. They're my superior officer, and I completely disagree, and I've just not had good responses when I've tried to offer my opinion. I know when you or Commander Tobor ask for my opinion, even if it's different than yours, you take that information and it's considered and it is what it is. But I just feel like maybe Averick, when I disagree with him, gets mad at me, sir. I'm in Starfleet as a career. I've been an ensign for a while. I don't want to be an ensign forever. And I don't want the fact that I have a different opinion to impact my ability to be promotable.
Understandable.
I just don't know how to bring it up if the decision has already been made. If I was in the moment when the decision was being made, I would have asked, sir, can I offer my opinion? And it would be what it would be. But I sat down in the chair this evening when I started my shift, and the decision had already been made.
One thing to keep in mind about Vulcans is they don't... You could see that Oshen is trying to damp down that racial tension that's between the Andorians and the Vulcans. Vulcans are logical. I don't want to say almost to a fault, but what I can say is that if Lieutenant Averick is responding to your feedback in a negative way, in what you perceive as a negative way. It could be because you are one of your strengths is that you are a very personable individual. I know what you're feeling. You wear your heart on your sleeve sometimes. That can be off-putting to Vulcans. Now, I'm not suggesting that you change how you approach others. What I am suggesting is that you look at the fact that Lieutenant Averick is logical. They make their decisions based on facts. You're not the only person who's had challenges with Vulcans. When I was just an ensign, and I will tell him the story of the scenario where I was in a crash landing with Dr. Tapria, and the CO of the mission was rendered incapacitated, and so on and so forth. And she challenged my choices to move to a higher location as opposed to repairing the systems. And the fact that the biggest challenge that I had with her was, until I was dropping facts and exchanging facts with her, I didn't make any headway.
Yes, I can appreciate that, sir, but I just don't know if I have any facts. I just have a gut instinct that it's a bad idea. We have one of the best engineering crews in the fleet, sir, and they are doing everything they can, but we're on a ship that's nearing its 20th year. And after its first full refit, that was actually after it was nearly destroyed, rendered inoperable, lost for years, then refit. I mean, we're on an old ship. That's great. But we are pushing everything she's got, and our teams are making it work like nobody outside of us would know. But sitting at the helm, making the calculations and the adjustments for normally things that this ship wouldn't have to worry about, I can tell you, she's just not responding well. And I don't mean badly. I don't know how to explain it to somebody who doesn't have my senses. I don't know how to articulate this, but I operate my systems at a rapid rate. The moment I recognize something and I act on something, there's almost no delay. That's just who we are, the Akshitani as a species. We just multitask. We do things in that manner, which means things that to most sapient species have zero delay, we recognize delays. When you press a button and a light turns on, or you say lights and the lights turn on, that split-second variance, which is barely perceptible to, say, humans, that an Andorian might pick up because you can sense the darkness in ways that somebody else might not. I sense that as well, but that minuscule time variance is pronounced for me. I am actually physically waiting for an event to happen before I can start the next action. I've been watching a bunch of old movies with some of the human crew, and they were watching some movie about video games in the 20th century, and one of the characters was talking about lag time. Like, they were playing some game, it was networked, and one person's computer was slower than another's, so this person got to act and do things in the game that the other person couldn't keep up with. That's what it's like when you're flying the Dalamis Christian under our current circumstances. I am waiting for things to happen that, at warp speed, those minuscule seconds that I perceive that most humans don't are big. Those types of things get worse when you're near subspace anomalies. I don't have numbers on it. I don't know what the variances are. I just know that I sense it. And quite honestly, I'm afraid that once you get so many decimal points away from nanoseconds, a Vulcan's going to read that as negligible. So I guess I just don't have the logic that I think I would need to win that discussion. I don't know what else I might do, so I guess I'm here less about will you say something or will you do something, sir. I think I'm more asking, how do I handle a situation where I know what it takes, but I don't have what it takes? But I think it's really important to try anyway. I'm looking for direction, sir.
I was going to suggest that you ask Lieutenant Averick for the facts that they're working on so that you can get a better sense of them. But what might be a better approach is to ask the lieutenant for advice. Ask them to help you understand the facts and figures that they are working with. That's not your nature. You look to them to help you communicate what they believe they need to know. The lieutenant is capable of realizing that you offer a perspective that they don't have. As long as you don't try to force it down their throat, it will be seen as a benefit and a value.
I can certainly give that a try, sir. Thank you. I'm sorry to disrupt you. I know it's the end of my shift, but probably time for you to be crashing. And so, crash is probably a bad thing for a helm officer to say. Calling it a night. Sir, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
No worries.
Your advice was well-reasoned and did not demean nor elevate either party who's in opposition,
Right.
which is a skillful thing to do. You gave good advice. The question is, how well is it going to be retained? How well is it going to be accepted? That type of thing. So in this case, the challenge is only going to be a 1. However, because there's a delicate balance in these issues, your complication range is going to be an 18, 19, or 20.
Okay, let's see. I don't think lead by example would be a decent focus for this one.
You did give your advice from your situations.
That's true.
I think that actually would quite definitely apply under these circumstances. I would also say that likely this would fall under a presence command role.
Yeah, okay. So it would be a 15 for me. I'm not going to buy anything with this.
I will also say that Ensign Lusan wants to succeed, so he is actually going to be an assist role in this particular case. He's not in opposition to you. He's trying to accomplish a task with you. And your role?
I got a 3 and a 6, which makes 3 successes.
Ensign Lusan is a 16, which is probably not going to help, with a 3 that gives you 2 momentum. And unless you have any immediate spends that you wish to use at this point in time, you feel relatively confident that he's going to be successful in navigating this issue.
Yeah, I can't think of anything I'd want to dig out of that.
Aside from really creating an opportunity in some fashion, I don't think there would be a lot you could do in this particular situation. So with that, he exits, and we will get back to the results of his discussion with Arvik at a later point. That particular day passes. The next day, and of course we remain within the confines of your remembrance of events from previous days. So we float from that interaction to you headed to the holodeck to get some R&R time and get some relaxation time and just center. I think is probably a good way to phrase it in so much as Andorian's center. We're actually going to pick up with you in the holodeck in the midst of your program towards the end of this particular session. Describe what your session is like, what the audience would see.
He's found some old Earth literature that someone had converted into a holo program. It's based on a book called The Ice Schooner, which is an old Michael Moorcock story. Essentially, where we would see Oshen is on what appears to be a schooner of some sort, made of, rather than wood, it's made mostly of metal. It has, instead of being submerged in the water, it's on basically large blades, and it is on basically an ocean of ice. He and a number of other people are currently next to the ship, and they're basically at this point skinning a large whale of some sort. He's up to his elbows in this creature. There's the steam of its innards that's coming into the air. It is clearly very cold. So,
while you're doing this, your program is going well. All the people there are part of the Holo program. They are effectively NPC characters. One of these characters is near the edge of this bladed vessel, and I'm assuming this is a sail vessel, correct?
Yeah, it does pick up on the winds. There are other methods for propelling, but it is It has the sails. Yes.
Yeah. So this individual's standing where the ladder system or the get back up to the boat system is, and one of the individuals is shivering, and you see them just fall over. And it seems a bit different than you recall other viewings or your understanding of the story. It just seems a shade out of place.
After pondering it for a moment or two, do the other characters in the story seem to react to that?
No, it's almost like they don't notice it at all.
Computer, freeze program.
Everything freezes.
Move over to that individual. They fell over, they huddled up like they're cold?
They just fell over. They don't look any colder than anybody else was in the simulation. It looks like they just fell where they were. So they were standing holding a thing, and when you see them, they're rigid on the ground, not holding the thing, but in exactly the same position.
Computer, identify that character.
This is crewman 14, not identified individually within the scope of the novel, but extrapolated based on the average crew of such vessels as described within that.
Pause. I get irritated with the lengthy description of it, and I move over. Is the character still reacting to the cold, still shivering, or did they freeze as well? What I'm looking for, is this actually a character, or is this like somebody real?
It is frozen like everything else, as far as freeze frame versus frozen cold.
Okay, all right. Zoom program, and I will immediately point, because I believe I'm the character who's the captain of the schooner. Get him on board by the fire pit.
I'm fine, sir. I'm fine, sir.
You don't look fine.
Sorry, I failed you, sir. And you kind of sense that little minute hesitation, that timing hesitation that happens when something occurs in a simulation that causes the computer to have to alter its program ever so slightly, and then says, I was just standing here and I fell over. I must have lost my grip on the ropes, sir.
All right, so I will slip back into as much as the character as Oshen is able to portray over, and I look him up and down very, very menacingly, because that's the character that I'm portraying in this novel.
Of course, I'll do whatever you say, sir. I'm so sorry.
You're no use to me as a popsicle. Get back on the ship. Warm yourself up.
Aye, sir. And you see it reach for the rope ladder, and his hands go through the ropes, as though the ropes are not tangible enough. And he's like, sir?
Computer, pause.
Computer pauses.
Run diagnostic on simulation.
Simulation, functioning within all parameters, save minor alterations due to a character falling that did not happen in the original programming.
So I move over to the rope ladder, and is it solid enough for me? I have no idea what the technical term for this would be, but I will ask the computer what is with whatever would cause the holograms to become solid. There's a technobabble term for it, and it is escaping me.
The computer voice speaks up and says, specific diagnostic results indicate there is a 33% variance in the phase discriminator for the holomatrix for specific areas of the simulation. The program itself is moving according to parameters. Visually, there are occasional localized events within the simulation that seem to be missing proper coherence.
Computer end program.
The program ends. The Delamas Christian's holodeck, however, doesn't have the squares. It has a hexagonal grid pattern within it. And it's at the edges of the hex patterns match the unique door shape of the holodeck itself in this room. And as opposed to those orange lines, very similar to what you'd expect from a Tabletop Journeys production, it has the Tabletop Journeys blue internally. And the computer pads are highlighted with a nice little royal purple, but not illuminated Epsilon style.
But that would be bad.
That would be exceedingly poor.
I don't need to do that right now. So I will actually go to the control panel, scan for a random scenario, and fire it up. And I'll spend a little time myself seeing if I can figure out, was it just my program, or is there something up with the holo emitters? And if so, I don't want to spend too much time with this, because if there is something that is an issue, I'm going to escalate it. I'm not going to raise a red alert because the holodecks are screwing up.
Yeah. So you pull up a random, what you get is the bowling alley scenario, which is programmed for and by the crew of the Michael Collins. You're seeing the Michael Collins bowling alley. They have actually dedicated an entire holodeck to be permanently set up as their bowling alley. In fact, the holo character who operates that bowling alley is a sentient program. You're not getting the sentient version of that program.
That's what I was going to ask. I might have an issue with that on this particular ship. One's enough.
You have the original program before they made it permanent on the Michael Collins.
Okay. I will walk up to the bowling balls and tap one or two just to make sure. Do my hands go through them?
Nope, they work.
Okay.
The pins are racked. You get commotion because the bowling alley scenario, it's got people bowling. It's a whole thing. And the person behind the counter at the bowling alley putting little spray stuff into shoes. It's a regular 21st century bowling alley goings on.
Yeah, this is not Oshen's scene. I'm trying to think. I think at this point, Oshen would simply shut down the program again, log in the register that what happened, mark it as a low priority because it doesn't seem to be anything else. And once I've done that, I will. This was a holo emitter. We don't really have anything else on the ship that leverages those emitters, do we? I don't think we do. We don't have a holo doctor. We don't have anything like.
I don't think you have anything on any of the shuttles either.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just running through it just in my head to ensure that the problem isn't something that I would want to basically tweak. Just would I want to take a look at anything else myself to see if there was any concerns? So.
Aside from the fact you have more scheduled time this week on your way back, and if it's not functioning right, that would impact your own personal time when you go. And in effect, you guys have been working really hard for a year. The holo time that people get is important. Mm-hmm. If it's not working correctly, that could be an issue. Not in the immediate, but if that is something that, depending on where that variant shows up, could be a safety concern. In that if something's supposed to be there and it's not, somebody could fall, twist their ankle, whatever. Even if safeties are on, if you go to stand on something that doesn't hold your weight, that's a thing. If the variance was checked out to be consistent, it could shut down the holodeck for a while. Impacting crew morale is probably its biggest negative in this particular case.
Fair enough. So I'm actually going to see if I can find crewman Dree from engineering.
Dree is on a different assignment, but Dree says, I can definitely send some assistance to you, sir, and that would be second class Kookar. She is very good with emergency repair protocols as well as heavy equipment maintenance, so she can certainly help identify a problem, and depending on how technical its repair, may be able to actually get things up and running for you, sir.
Perfect, thank you.
Within a few minutes, the holodeck doors open, and Lieutenant Kookar, she enters. She's an enlisted person, dark hair. She is a human of the sub-Asian continent, Indian descent, and she says, how may I assist you, sir?
I told the computer to start my program up again, minus the temperature differential.
Computer complies.
I'm standing there and I'm wearing the outfit from this Hollow novel, which, it was a big parka hoodie with the fur, and it's all black and gray and so forth. And she's just there in the Starfleet uniform. I don't think she wants to deal with sub-zero temperatures.
No, she does not.
Yeah.
I will also add that when the computer complies, it says program resumed. So you are back, and all of a sudden, all the viscera that was upon you shows up. So now you're standing there, a bloody mess, standing in front of the crewman, who looks at you, not in horror, but she definitely steadies and sturdies herself. Sir, are we sparring?
No. Oh. And I point at the whale.
Oh, sorry. It's at this point you recognize, because she very quickly got in a readiness stance, that she seemed, for an engineer, or what you perceive an engineer to be, very accustomed to a fight. And it's not something you really picked out before. Most Starfleet officers have a relatively high degree of physical fitness in general, but you're definitely looking at somebody who is beyond that average. She didn't throw up her fist in a guard position, but she steadied herself. Like, one leg slid back a little bit. She turned slightly to the side, so you did not get a full forward-facing look at her. You were at a bit of an angle. Without being in a combat stance, somebody who has been in battles or has seen fights, who has been in the security-minded, you definitely recognize somebody who has seen some stuff. That seemed very automatic. Like, it didn't seem like it was something she consciously did. It was more like her body just reacted in that way. And when she realized that you weren't, you get almost that wash of apologeticness. That was not something she intended to do.
So as I turn back, I'll point at that, and I'll start walking towards the rope ladder, and I'll actually pause, and I'll say, if you are interested in sparring sometime, we can look into that. And I'll just keep moving before I reach the ladder.
She follows.
Yeah. And I'll explain what the computer had explained to me. The 33%, I will double check to make sure that the problem still exists.
It does.
Okay.
She's using her engineering tricorder, and she is looking at it, and she definitely diagnoses that the computer's accurate with their variants. What the computer didn't detail, probably because he didn't know the right prompts, which I've just provided it through the tricorder, is that that variance, that 33% variance, is based on a 0.45 nanosecond variance in information going from the processing the hollow programming. Basically, there's a time dilation happening between what the program wants to have happen and what's happening. How do I say this in layman's terms, sir? The force field that creates solid objects for the holograms is functioning. However, because it's getting its information fractions of seconds later than it's supposed to, as things move in the environment, a rope ladder wavers. It's not in a single solid position. It wavers slightly with the wind. It's constantly reforming itself per the program. The problem is, as it's always fractions of seconds behind. It's never fully forming. So that's why you're seeing it, but you can't feel it because it's never always there. It's not in sync is probably the best way to
could be described as a network lag.
Precisely.
Sorry, I'm just thinking of something else. What could cause something like this in the systems? This shouldn't be something that it's not just general wear and tear.
I would say no. There's a couple things that could cause this. With the quality of quantum computing that we have in the 24th century, it is highly unlikely that wear and tear is the issue. Software issues can happen, but what we're talking about is something causing the information to slow down on a quantum level, which I would say there's something environmentally happening, either internal to the ship or external to the ship, that is creating these variances. It's very minute. The level of accuracy necessary for things like the transporters and holodecks are really where you're going to see the biggest impact. These type of minor delays are typically caught and covered by buffering systems. For some reason, the buffering cache on the holo programs are not functioning. That in and of itself is probably a factor of overtaxing the replicators with the excess personnel we have on board. I can certainly talk to Lieutenant Commander Tenari and see if we can authorize additional power to our replication and transporter systems. That will also cover the holodeck, sir, but essentially we would be limiting our overall reserve power in order to make sure that these types of systems are functional, and that will be the case as long as we maintain the excess personnel that we currently have.
For the time being, let's not spend the time... If this is the extent of what you described, things that are not stationary and static, we might be able to just let people know to pay attention. My only concern is you mentioned the transporters. Is it possible that we would have an issue with the transporters?
It is very possible, sir. In all honesty, as I was providing you the information, I had actually already indicated the need to schedule a level 4 diagnostic, which would take them offline for a time so we can make sure this phase variance is not impacting the transporters. In fact, what we would need to do is isolate the amount of power to keep the transporters away from this issue. But if we do that, we then have to consider the fact that we would either be choosing to make this problem worse here or start impacting variances with our replicators. I don't recommend the replicators, but that's not my pay grade, sir.
First of all, the fact that when she says that she has already sent the request, there is a definite expression of approval from Oshen in that regard. He will look at her and let's make sure we have all the facts before we make a decision on what we cut and we don't cut.
Absolutely,
keep looking into this. Keep Lieutenant Jar informed, and he and I will have the conversations about where the ship's priorities are.
Aye, sir. And with that, she looks to you as though, are you dismissing her, or is she supposed to stay here and play in the snow?
No. So at that point, I will say, Peter, begin bowling simulation, and I will look at her. And, yes, you're dismissed if you want to go.
Aye, sir.
Yeah.
Sir?
And I will go attempt to figure out this bowling thing.
Sure. As she's walking away, you get the sense that she almost wanted to ask you a question, but then she caught herself and didn't, and she just continues to exit.
If I pick up on that...
Yep.
Before I throw the ball, I will say, was there anything else, crewman?
Just thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to be involved in something important beyond my standard duties.
And I look at her. You would not be on this ship if you were incapable. You've already impressed me with your initiative and your awareness. Do you somehow feel that you shouldn't be here?
I'm an enlisted person in an organization that celebrates its officers, sir. I appreciate the privilege of my position. There's a lot of people from my colony that never had the opportunity to join Starfleet. And of those who survived, many who probably never would be allowed. I absolutely feel I belong here, sir. Sometimes I am pleasantly surprised when my skills are appreciated.
Well, never let them underestimate us colony folks.
Well, Starfleet forgot about my colony once. If there's anything good about the Dominion War, is Starfleet found those of us who were never going to be brought back.
So what would I know about the crewman's background?
Honestly, probably not a whole lot, other than she is enlisted. She's fairly young, and you would definitely know that it was noted in her file that the homeworld for her colony, not her homeworld, mind you, but the homeworld for her colony was definitely in the demilitarized zone after the Federation-Cardassian War. There was a mark on the file that there were possibility that she would have Maquis sympathies, but because she joined Starfleet after the end of the Maquis and after the end of the Dominion War, that was a non-issue as far as blocking her from being in Starfleet, but it was singularly the reason why she was not allowed to go to the academy and be an officer.
How far into the zone were you, crewman?
Sir, I never lived in the zone. My parents did. I was born in a Cardassian prison camp on Cardassia Prime. I lived the first 16 years of my life in captivity. I was freed after Damar's rebellion and the Federation reconstruction efforts on Cardassia began.
I apologize. I confess that I had not had the opportunity to delve into your file enough to know that. I don't expect that was a pleasant upbringing.
I was one of the fortunate ones. While separated from my family, the Cardassian family that controlled me were decent people. They actually took as many captives as they could to prevent war crimes, sir. They were, in the final days of the war, members of Damar's rebellion. They fought alongside the Federation, trying to throw off the shackles of the founders. They had recorded information and provided locations for many such captives who were held by individual members of Cardassian society. And through a proxy, someone I've never met, that information got to the Federation's hands. And within 4 or 5 months of the fall of Cardassia Prime, most of us, all that I know of who survived bombardment from the Dominion and life in captivity, were freed, brought to wherever we wanted to go. Of course, we couldn't go to our home colonies because most of those were in Cardassian control, but I went to Earth, studied for a few years, and tried to join Starfleet. Was not able to do so as an officer, but I had some good people speak on my behalf, and I was able to join as enlisted. In response to your thoughts about sparring, no, sir, I'd rather not fight anymore if I don't have to. I will if I have to, but I'm not a pacifist. I just find no support in it.
Understood. So what do you want to do?
Build things, sir. Working under Lieutenant Tanari, seeking new ways to do things, work on great ships. I figure if we had better ships, better crews, better maintenance, maybe we wouldn't have lost the Cardassian War. And I know the Federation doesn't look at it as a loss, but I know my parents, before they passed, said the one war that the Federation lost, they don't even want to talk about losing is the Cardassian War. They left us stranded. I figure if we had bigger, better, more, maybe there wouldn't be a need for fighting. Maybe we'd have extra to share. Maybe the resources that the Cardassians were lacking that caused them to do what they did. I don't know. I want to be a part of building a solution in this galaxy. I don't think I can do that behind a gun, but I do think I can do that if I can help ships like this work. So, folks like you and the rest of the officers on the main bridge have the absolute best technology backing up every decision you choose.
We are proud to have you.
Thank you, sir. You can definitely count on me. With that, she exits. Scene fades.